Good morning and welcome to every one of you. My name is Pradeep Channavajula. I'm Senior Vice President at QAI. QAI, as all of you know, is a leading global consulting and workforce development organization. As part of our community efforts, we do bring in thought leaders and experts, who promote and who primarily propagate a good idea or a thought that we all should be listening to and learning from. And as part of this initiative, today we are focusing on the topic of test automation. And test automation, as we all know, is currently a big rage, especially in agile development environments, and for a good reason as well. Automation can be an awesome productivity booster within testing teams and a quality enhancer for your systems, when you use it correctly. And most importantly, many experiences also teach us that test automation is not about implementing a tool suite, but a strategic initiative to reduce cycle time, enable intelligence, and ensure complete coverage of the application. But we all know that. And the question we always face is, why is it so hard to achieve? And what are the challenges that organizations face? The key, of course, is to make sure, that it is used the right way, which is the most challenging part. And of course, automation involves strategy, smart tools, skill, and experience. We need the automation to be less complicated with a low learning curve so that it can be adopted quickly. We do believe that there are many solutions available for helping us in test automation. And today I have the pleasure in introducing Avo Automation. Avo Automation has been helping multiple clients, ranging from large banking and insurance clients, to smaller organizations. And Avo Automation has been kind enough to, support us in this initiative today to present their approach on how to make automation intelligent, smart, at the same time easy to adopt. With me today, we have before I go into the whole webinar, I'd like to set some context of on some protocols for all of you to follow. So all of you can certainly post your questions on the chat box in the right side. So please feel free to do write any question that you have as we go through the presentation. For the benefit of everyone in the webinar today, we've kept you on the mute, just so that there is an uninterrupted pleasure of listening to the experts present their viewpoint. And if you do have, we also have some polls that we have planned primarily to identify these issues and see how they resonate with your own organization and your context. So please do participate in those polls so that we get a view of your world, and that will help us to contextualize the presentation as we move forward. And again, the last point I would like to mention is, please stay on till the end of the presentation, because Avo Automation has been kind enough to extend some interesting, benefits, to members who are attending this presentation today. Without much further ado, the way we are playing the agenda out is initially we would have a brief about Avo Automation, and then we would have a quick overview to the client context, which will be provided by Vidur. Vidur is CEO for Avo Automation. Then we would go into a detailed product demonstration and the approach, that Avo Automation has taken for this large insurance client that they've helped with. We will be seeing the detailed demo and the technical walkthrough of that solution, and followed by question and answer session. And now, having said that, let me now let me invite Lisa Camarillo, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Avo Automation. Again, most of you have heard about Avo Automation or probably Googled when you receive the invite. It's always good to know from the organization as to what they do. So may I invite Lisa? Lisa, the main question I have here is, what does Avo Automation really do? This is something that I came across and we've had multiple discussions, but every time I hear it, I keep unraveling, something new about Avo Automation, how you're contributing to this entire journey of liberating human potential. And I really love that tagline of yours. And I would love to hear a little bit about, what is Avo Automation and what do you really do, and how do you help organizations on building resilient, intelligent, and smart automation? Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Pradeep. Yes, and let me also say thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today. As I agree with you that this automation has been evolving over a pretty long period of time, but I think it's come to an inflection point, and I think it's an important topic. I should also say that just to give the importance of automation some context, I wanted to share that the IDG 2021 Cio Report that many of you might have seen, it was a report done of about 1,000 CIOs, and it shows that on the top of their agenda, an initiative that is expected to drive the bulk of IT investments is going to be automation and AI. And that may resonate with this audience because it's very possible that many of the people who are joining us today have implemented automation at this point. But we believe at Avo that automation is a must to be able to compete, at least in this day and age of it's all digital all the time. And I know that we're probably experiencing that even more so because of the pandemic. But I think it's going to become even more prevalent as we move into the 21st century. So with that said, who is Avo? I wanted to just spend a little bit of time introducing us. Avo was born out of a 20-year history of delivering IT services to some of the largest enterprise companies in the Fortune 500. And so we really are talking about big banks, we're talking about big insurers, we're talking about financial services organizations, but it also includes manufacturing, it includes healthcare, it includes many of the companies that are doing all kinds of innovative work that we have helped become even more innovative and accelerate their business with automation. Our roots are in tech consulting, implementation, and management. And it is from working side by side with our clients that our experts, a lot of engineers, a lot of consultants have discovered that while customers saw the value in automation, they struggled to find a holistic solution that truly streamlined workflows, both in business critical areas such as software quality assurance, and that's the topic for us today, and business process management. From that point forward, Pradeep, everything we designed into our solutions was compelled by a customer need. And I should say that because our roots are in services, everything we do is just sort of innate that we're compelled by a customer need. Just a couple of important points about who we are. One is that we are certified in the application environments that are most common to our clients. Two of those are SAP and Oracle. And so what our customers and anybody who wants to do business with us can expect is that our products work seamlessly. So if you're an SAP shop or you're Oracle or any other major application, you can expect that our automation solution is going to work seamlessly. We're also the first to enable what we call auto generation of web cases. And that's a really important point regarding how easily and fluidly our solutions work together. And I'll point that out in a couple of slides. So enough about us. I wanted to spend a little bit of time just kind of characterizing what we see in our client base. This is a typical journey for quality engineering teams specifically. As you can see just kind of at the top, and I'm sure this audience can empathize with this, not much is usually automated, and the latest stat is upwards of 85% is still manual in environments. And we see that both in IT as well as in the rest of the business. So when we look at business processes, not much is automated. And if there is automation, it's often disjointed. So you have a little bit of automation in pockets of the organization, maybe using testing tools, automation testing tools, but they're not necessarily connected or implemented in sort of a general framework or a unified framework. We've found that quality engineering teams have any mix of these challenges, and I'm sure there are others. But when customers reach that kind of point where they're not seeing a return on investment, that is when we talk to customers about relooking at ROI and how can automation help. With a lot of these challenges in mind, we talk to our customers about what we call the essential elements to QA, quality assurance automation excellence. And that's really intelligence, it's about simplicity, it's about speed. And when we say intelligence, I really mean that inherent AI capability that's built into a solution. When we say simplicity, I really mean, the friendliness of the UI as well as no code, because we've tested to make sure that our platform covers a high percentage of what the client needs. And anything above that, we work with customers to customize a specific capability that might be unique to their case. Speed really means that you can deliver software rapidly. And so because your testing process end to end is automated and we're able to do that, you can rapidly deliver software, almost error-free, right? And obviously that's easier said than done, but we've got examples where it's possible. It's not to say that those are the only challenges. Like we understand that we hear that there's more that customers need, whether it's scalability or reliability. And like I said, the most important thing here is that we're used to working with customers. So depending on what their needs are, we work with you. We keep an open mind to what they need versus what we want to propose. So what do we do? Specifically, what does all of this mean? And so it kind of comes to a head with what we call a quality automation system. And so we do a little bit of everything, starting with process discovery. We enable clients to capture and document their processes, and then from there go to an automation. Why? Because we've found that, and I've experienced this myself, there's a lot of legacy processes that exist. And you can imagine for an enterprise process, that's a pretty heavy set of documentation. And so we can automate that. We also do the traditional bot building or RPA, robotic process automation, for business processes at large. But today we're going to focus on test automation, that kind of third prong to the triangle. And we're going to talk about how simple it is to use it, how user-friendly it is, and then how code-free the experience is going to be for quality engineering teams. And so this will be the emphasis today. We're going to show you that it's an end-to-end unified test automation solution. My colleague Chris is going to kind of walk you through what it looks like. Vitor, as you mentioned, our CEO, is going to introduce one of our clients that was able to implement this and that achieved a lot of what you're seeing here. Simple to use, no code platform, super intelligent because AI is inherent, and some of the other features that we're going to walk through, because we know it's as easy it is to say it, it's a lot harder to do it. And so from that standpoint, a demo is important to just kind of show everybody what it looks like. Over to you.
Thank you, Lisa. That's a very interesting perspective, and I think all the key points, that you're mentioning are very relevant to us. The question I have obviously is, it's important to know, what the clients are going through at the moment. So let me try to do a quick sampling with the audience that we have today. So to all the audience, the question I have is, what's your real big pain point? So you'll see a poll on your screen. Please kindly, choose and answer that poll. I would like to know, what's your current biggest test automation pain point? Go ahead. We'll keep it open for a minute, and then we will continue. I see a lot of people mentioning that their application testing is manual at the moment. That's leading the charts. And there is a 13% of them who believe that there is no investment, the tool does not deliver, there are outdated processes, and it's still time consuming and manual. That's an overwhelming percentage. Nothing new, but it's good to know your views. Okay. Perfect. Only 60% voted. I will now close the poll. Okay. And as you can see, the results are, clearly telling us that like 58% of the testing is manual and time consuming. 25% of the audience have said that their processes are outdated and need upgrade. And 17% of them say that the company does not invest in test automation. And an interesting 25% of the whole audience, believes, that all of the above exist in their organization. That's quite an interesting point of view. Now, it's having understood this particular context, which is again nothing new. I would like to invite Vidur from Avo Automation. I'd like him to speak about the client context. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Pradeep. Can you hear me okay?
yes, I can hear you, Vidur. Welcome to this forum. And thanks for taking time off your busy schedule to come in and present the context of the client. I think what we need to understand is, when we talk about a case study and when we talk about a situation, it's very important to set the context right. So we want to hear from you as to what did your client really face as an automation challenge, and what was the kind of an outcome before we jump into the demonstration. Over to you, Vidur.
Absolutely. So before I kick off, on a lighter note, it looks like GoToWebinar has not tested the application enough because my screen is not showing even though my face is not showing even though the webcam is on. But anyway, let me turn this guy off. Enough trying it. Okay, here we go. Cool. So folks, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us for this webinar. And we're really excited to show you what we have in store from a product demo perspective. But before we go there, I want to kind of talk to you about, one of our customers, that one of our larger clients actually, that have been leveraging Avo at great scale across their enterprise and seeing tremendous success over the last 1 year. So without further ado, so this customer is a Fortune 500 client. It's an insurance company based out of Chicago. They are one of the largest property and casualty insurance clients in the US. And what happened was they brought in a new head of technology, CIO, a couple of years ago, and she wanted to move her entire IT delivery shop from a traditional project-based organization into an agile based product centric IT organization. And that's a key word here, product centric IT organization, because she knew that she needs to be able to churn out functionality and features as fast as some of the insurtech or fintech players out there in order to keep attracting and winning customers and offering a differentiating advantage in the marketplace. So one, she wanted to figure out how to deliver in a product centric model. And then as she started to do this, it became very, very important that she runs in an agile format, right? And we all know when we're running in an agile format, we need to be extremely fast in delivering functionality. So the business was jumping on board to this idea, but initially what was happening was in their sprints, they were supposed to be delivering stories. The only problem was they were using manual testing, and sometimes the core functionality that they were trying to deliver at the end of the sprint didn't work. Essentially, no point in building your super cool functionality so quickly if it doesn't work, right? So we were given the opportunity to do a small POC, show them how we could implement the product, and actually deliver this automation end to end across their test stack. Not just limited to web automation, not just limited to SAP. We said, hey, we support a vast array of technologies, one product to do all your functional test automation needs, right? And in doing this, what we showed them very quickly in our POC was, look, you are trying to deliver for this particular sprint. Let us show you how fast you can automate with Avo and get all of these features out well tested at the end of your 2-week sprint cycle. We also saw some of the testing team, a lot of them were manual initially, appreciated this because they were stuck towards the end of the sprint, spending long hours in the office trying to manually test the new functionality before it goes into production. So I think overall, you'll see in the demo in a couple of minutes how Chris shows you how easy the product is to use. And I'd highly encourage all of you to take a look at it and try it out for yourself. So without further ado, I don't want to go on too much about the client and the background. I really want to get into the meat of the pain point we solved and show you the product. So Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you to take us over.
Thank you, Vidar. Thank you so much. Let me just get myself fired up here. All right. Well, thanks for that. And Lisa, thanks for the setup along with the setup, right, to both of you. The devil's always in the details, right? And as was the case with our insurance customer, as we started to engage them and the interaction that Vidar mentioned around the POC, it uncovered additional pain points or stuff, right? There's always stuff. There's always tends to be a little bit more than what you see at the surface. And so what you're seeing on the screen here is a sort of peeling back of the next layer of the onion, as it were. And Vidar touched on this a bit, and even Lisa did just the same with her setup. And that was, there were a number of different challenges and pain points that compounded one another. So the first was really a technological one, right? And the second was how that interacted with their agile process and that of their coding-based structure, right? Their approach to creating tests. And those ended up having a compounding effect on costs, right? As well as being ultimately to track defects, right? So it ends up circling back, as it often does, where you have inefficiencies in one area, whether it be in the beginning or middle or towards the end, it impacts everything else within the overall cycle. Okay, so for our insurance customer here, they started out with a focus, as most should, with their web application. And they quickly found that, hey, guess what? When we start thinking about the end-to-end test process, right? However that may set up based on a given transaction type or whatnot, their mainframe was involved, right? So they started with a web-based approach, code-based, web-based approach, I might add, in platform, and then quickly ran into the challenge of, well, how do I use that when testing my mainframe, right? So when we entered in and discussed initially with them, and as we progressed in the POC, we started to uncover these, and the benefits became numerous, leveraging our platform and the holistic, their visionment of the holistic needs that they had. So often when you engage a customer, as we did with this insurance customer, they might understand more of their challenges, or they might learn more of their challenges, and that was the case here, right? So with our platform, it's a no-code based platform, and thus enables you to be more agile and accelerate your test case creation. In the case of this insurance customer, they were using upwards to 10 products and or tools, right? So it really had compounded itself in that regard. Their use of code, a code-based platform, was actually ultimately slowing their test case creation by upwards to 60%, right? So again, a compounding effect, right? And the fact that they could not really get going with their agile development process relative to their test case creation became an impediment, a tremendous challenge. And again, I've said compounding several times, but you can start to feel sort of the burden that was being additive here. When you have disparate teams working in disparate technologies, web, mainframe, mobile, which was the case with our insurance customer here, those separate teams come with different skill sets. That too gets compounded when using, again, multiple tools, right? And they were using multiple tools, multiple, technology-focused tools to ultimately solve their test case challenge or need, right, as a business. the additive aspects of the skill sets involved, the cost, maybe even the specific skills and competencies, cost of those resources were compounding. And then as you expand, as you increase your test coverage, your costs increase as well. And in their case, they were seeing increases around 40%, certainly compared to when they started working with us and saw our holistic, no-code, object-oriented environment, okay? And then lastly, you need to know where you're at, right, at any given point in time. And so this has as much to do with reporting as well as defect management. And we have extensive reporting, as you will see, which gives you that moment in time, a reference point. But our integrations with various third-party, whether it be version management, defect management, et cetera, products, other solutions, greatly enabled them to actually increase their overall project activities from agile all the way through to test. So this is the completion, the readiness and release completion point, where they're not just code ready, but also test ready, and they're release ready now. And we were able to increase that by upwards to 30%, okay? So with that, let me go ahead and give you just a quick overview of the demo I'm going to step you through. It's going to be through a fictitious application on the Avo side, what we call Avo Bank fondly. It's a funds transfer application that we've set up, okay? Simple but powerful nonetheless. And as Lisa pointed out, you know, there is intelligent technologies that are not just at play, but are needed, right? How do I accelerate, right? This is the big question. How do I, there's automation is automation, but automation that's impactful is accelerating. It's increasing where I am now as a business and moving my business forward in various areas, in this case, test case creation, right, at large, and being able to expand quickly as well as effectively. And so what I'm going to walk you through is a little bit of an inverted approach here. In most cases, you would start with your test planning, but I want to get right into the thick of things here. I think it's important that we do so you can understand literally the acceleration that's possible using our object-oriented and intelligent screen and object identification technologies or capability that's shown and usable in a very simple way, how that plays into the test design process, where you're leveraging our pre-built functions. Again, we're not coding here, okay? And I want to emphasize that. I'll be emphasizing it a number of times as we go through the demo, okay? And then I'll step through the way you can execute, which is there's a plethora of ways that you can schedule execution. And again, there's no one size or one way that fits all. It depends on the business's need, the end-to-end testing that's needed, and just how expansive it is. And I'll touch on the expansive needs that were the case for our insurance customer here, and where they started of thinking and where they were able to expand to, again, because of our platform. And I feel that's important to bring that out. I'll touch on the reporting. Again, it's detailed and extensive. And then lastly, I'm going to jump into test plan just so you can get a bigger picture view here, all right? So with that, let me go ahead and move into the demo, and I'm going to switch over screens, okay? So just peeling the onion one step back, and I'll be quick here, okay? But I think this is an important setup nonetheless. So in this demo, you're going to see these specific things unfold, right? So using a web application, right, within Avo Bank, the funds transfer that I mentioned, we're going to intelligently capture the following screens, right? It's going to be a login. You know, this is a secure site, right, as a funds transfer site should be. So we're going to securely log in. We need to capture that as part of our test process. We're also going to step into what's a two-tabbed environment. First shows your accounts page, the transactions that you've performed previously. We want to be able to capture that as a marker, right? And then we're going to move into the funds transfer details page. That's a multi-stepped endeavor or effort just the same, and that's often the case. That adds an extra level of complexity, but I felt that was important here because it's kind of real world, right? Why show something that's super simple when we need something that's more real world case? And I'm trying to do this within the time constraints just the same, but I want you to know that we can certainly go well outside of that. We're going to confirm the transfer as naturally we would, and then we got to log out, right? I mean, we need to make sure we cover that end-to-end process. Once we've captured those objects, we're going to assign them, right, into those keywords and functions appropriately, and apply the appropriate input data, what we're plugging into the fields as part of our test, any sort of output, which is a message to the screen we're going to show. And for each of these steps, right, that we capture and how we're designing, I'm going to walk us through the simple but powerful debug capability, right? It's essentially execute that test specifically on demand. And I'm going to do this because I'm not going to run an end-to-end test for time purposes, but this will reassure you, I'm sure, that if I were to do it, it would work just as you're seeing these incrementally and individually. All right. We're going to then take a look at scheduling, as I mentioned, test report, and I'll touch on defect management and then go into the test planning part. So without further ado, as it was mentioned before, let's go ahead and jump into our first series of screen captures. Okay. And so with this, we're going to start out with the login, right? The login screen. So what we're doing is navigating over to our Avo bank, right? We're going to start our screen capture mode. And with that, we're now going to capture the username, we'll capture the password, and then we'll capture the sign-in, right? The three basic or main steps that are important. You can also capture the forget password as well, so all the other aspects, but I'm keeping it simple here. We're stopping our screen capture, object capture process. We have screen generated names for each of these objects, which become variables unto themselves. You can, of course, rename them so they're more human readable and referenceable. Going to save that. Going to go ahead and start the debug mode. All right, so now we're debugging exactly what we captured. Okay, excuse me, I misspoke. We're now going to step into capturing the transactions page. Sorry about that. We're going to get to debug in just a second. So we're capturing the transaction screen. This is a marker. We're going to rename that. Right, and now we're going to move over to the funds transfer page that I mentioned before. Again, this is two-tabbed. So we did the first tab with my accounts. Now we're going to move to the funds transfer, which ultimately is a link. This is a web application. Okay, we captured the link, and now we're also going to show another powerful capability. You can continually append to anything that was captured. This gives you that ability to expand, right, your test cases over time, quickly and easily. Very important point. This is a unique feature of our product and our platform. So now we're capturing things like the beneficiary accounting number or account number, the routing number, and also the confirmation. It's going to go back. We've got those system generated names. We're going to rename those, right? And again, we're just checking to make sure. You can always jump back and forth to see what those names were for reference purposes. While we're going through this and renaming, I want you to realize that over on the left, you can see the multiple browsers that we support, and there's even some off screen, which actually would represent Safari. So we support Apple environments as well in browsers. And you can, another powerful capability is unique to us. You can capture with one browser and debug with another browser. You can jump back and forth. We're browser independent here, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and append again to this test case, and we're going to go to step 2, which is actually confirming the details that were added. An important step, right? It's a 3-step process. And we're going to save this shortly. And then lastly, we're going to confirm the actual acknowledgement of the transaction. In this case, we're going to capture the success, right? You could also capture the failure. That would be another important point, quickly and easily here. And then lastly, we're going to capture the logout capability. All right. Again, from login all the way through to logout, as I mentioned before. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and save that. Now we're to test design. So now this is the point, and I misspoke before, my apologies, where we're taking the objects that we captured, right, and the associated screens that they're on. So behind the scenes, that association exists. You saw how simple that was. We've got that in our object repository. Well, now we need to build a test as to steps need to be performed. We need actions and interactions to be performed. So this is where we're going to step into this right now, and this is where we're going to do this. We're going to go into the test design on a test case by test case basis. So we're first going to start with login. right? And think of this as task oriented in terms of the instructions that I'm giving. So I'm going to basically open a browser. I'm going to direct the browser to a specific URL. So it's an input. I'm feeding that to the browser. All right. And now I'm actually going to initiate a username. So this is that username object. And now for the password, right, which is coming up here. So the username, I'm going to give clear text, right? And I was excited to jump ahead, but for the password, instead of doing clear text would be foolish, we're going to use our built-in encryption. So you're seeing us apply the encryption here. And now we're going to save that test design. Now we're going to debug, right? I was excited to get here before. So now we're debugging the very test case that we just created on the fly, real time. And you're seeing this run in debug mode. This is exactly how the test case will actually be run at any point in time, whether as a suite of tests or individually. Okay. So now we're going to design the test case for that view transaction history, which is capturing that screen marker that I mentioned on my account. So we're setting this up. And I know I pointed this out before, but during debug, right, I could choose a different browser if I so wished, even though I had been focusing on Chrome. And our insurance customers, many of our other customers have identified and gained the unique benefit and value here. This gives the power to them to not only assign different test cases, right? So we're debugging that one screen. We're now going into the account details. But as I was just saying, it also becomes a user fulfillment need, an experience need, because you're not going to be able to focus as they experience your customers to just use one browser type. We don't live in that world. So I have to make sure that my application works across all different browsers, but I don't want to do this in a unique way where I have to staff my teams that way. So again, holistic, it's a platform-based holistic around multi-browser and multiple screen capture for acceleration into the design process. So jumping back into entering the account details and designing this, we're assigning the account beneficiary name. And now in this case, we're directly inputting as a single value as an input value into each of these fields. I want to mention very clearly that this could also be configured to pull from an Excel spreadsheet if you so wanted to, or a database, or even an API. So I'm keeping it simple here for the demo and for demonstration purposes, but I want to make it very clear that our data parameterization and input controls can come from many different sources. So we're just finishing up the funds details part of the funds transfer page, right? We're typing in our last input, and we're about ready to fire off the debug mode. And here we go, we're going to fire that off. And so here in debug mode is testing out the inputs into that funds transfer enter details step 1 point. Okay, now we're going to jump back and we're going to do the confirmation transaction. You probably saw at the end of that last screen, we did not click the confirm button, right? So now we're going to do that. Right, so now the confirm button will be selected. We're now moved over, right, lastly to step 3. And now we want to design capturing success in this case. We would also set up, if we were to do this, capturing failure. I'm not going to show that in this case, but whatever the different permutations would be, you can certainly add a test case for that as easily as you're seeing me add the success test case. And in this case, we're going to throw a message to the screen. So not only do we have an input, but we're going to throw an output, which is a message to the screen, which again will also be checkpointed in our reporting so that we're providing that integral integrity from a execution all the way through to reporting perspective. So as this is being input and we're creating the test case and designing this, I again want to point out the importance here of and benefits that our insurance customer had. They were able to literally not only do this quickly and easily, but do this from a holistic team perspective. So they actually rejiggered their teams in such a way where they were all working with the same object repository. So now lastly here, we're jumping into the very simple but very important log out test case. It's very simple because there's not much to it, but it's an important part of the step because we want to make sure we're covering log out correctly. Right, and it should go back to the Avo Bank screen, and so it has. Okay, so we're gonna move into execution reporting as a step and phase, as I pointed out before. So really quick on the recap side. So we've captured our screens relative to what would be our test plan, right? I haven't shown that to you intentionally, but we've got that login. We've got the we've got the various phases through my account, and then the funds transfer details, confirmation, and so on, all the way through to log out. We've now done our test design. So now we're going to step into the execution. And at this point, I'm going to show you the multiplicity, the various different ways you can execute if I were to run a test suite execution here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump this in, and I'm going to pause for a moment. Okay, and again, this too is browser-based. Everything we do is browser-based, and this is also another unique value proposition for us, and became a tremendous benefit for our insurance customer in particular here. But we've seen this with many of our customers. Being browser-based means the ease of deployment and execution. So when you start thinking about, expanding coverage, growing, how quickly can I do that? What's my latency time in doing that? What we've also incorporated here within our scheduling capability is the ability to intelligently schedule. Yes, I'm scheduling, but from a manager perspective or QA test perspective, I can assign these tasks. I can set the schedule forward, and I can do it in one of a couple ways, frankly. But the one way here would be potentially run it locally, but that has limiting factors on scale, right? This was one of the problems that our insurance customer was also experiencing. The platforms they were using were very well platform execution specific, didn't allow for great or broader scale. So as they looked at, again, thought more broadly of their needs, they were very focused on one technology and then started to realize, well, wait a minute, if it takes X amount of time to do and perform these tests, then how will it be when we start to expand the tests, increase our coverage? And all that amounted to was further running outside of their release schedule. So they've got to be able to do things fast, and in most cases, get their tests done, completely done in a 24-hour period, which means I've got to hit scale very, very quickly. I've got to get to scale very quickly, not just how I'm developing product, but also how I'm testing the very product and the elements within that I've developed. And so distributed testing or intelligent scheduling becomes important here. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this up again and show you what we can do and what they did in leveraging our unique capabilities here. So we're selecting a scenario, applying a date, right? It could be reoccurring, giving it a time that we would like this to start at, okay? And then we're going to use the other way that we have. Instead of running locally, you can run by way of virtually across pools. So we are client server based, no surprise there, probably at this point, given we're browser based through and through. But now from an orchestration standpoint, a test plan orchestration standpoint, test cases within a test plan, of course, you can set up pools, which are VMs that are running virtually, and you select the pool that you would like to run in, or we can auto select it for you, and then we will determine as pools free up, right, how to allocate those what we call ICE engines for execution. And you can do this in parallel. So you think about parallel testing across pools, think about parallel testing of test cases within a pool across multiple machines, VMs running within that pool. So quite powerful in terms of the positive compounding effects of scalability, right? So I'm going to go ahead and fire up our demo here again because I had us on pause. And so we're going to go ahead and schedule this, or would schedule this in this case, and then it's not going to run, right, for the purposes that I've already mentioned, time purposes, and be sensitive to that. All right, so now I'm going to jump us into a report. So here's an example of how our report looks, okay? Very detailed. You can drill down into it. You're going to see as each report, well, as each test suite is run, or test case, if you run it individually, you're going to get the details, and you can click on those. So you're going to see moments in time. This is very, very important, because not only do you see improvement and what would be relative growth achieved, but you need to be able to backtrack. And as we go into the details of the report here, right, and I'm going to drill into that here shortly, okay, not only do you provide things in a stepped fashion, right, we show you whether you passed or there's failure points, what the percentage breakdowns are, but you're also going to see the status on a step level, all right? So if you want, you can look at a pass on a specific step in a pass. You can drill down into this. In this particular case, everything passed, and I'm showing you that as a case because, bear with me here, I've run the suite of login to log out, and we've done the debugging, as I mentioned before. So everything passed. So logically, everything passed here when I ran it all together. In the real world, there might be some hiccups. You're likely going to have some failures. That's okay. Just like you're about ready to see here, wherever I have statuses that are failures, right, I can drill down and see, well, what and where. So you're going to see this right now. In this case, a pass, but if it was a failure, we'd show the screen, okay, and you'd be able to get a better visual of where that failure occurred, and then go back into design and take corrective action, okay. And so we're about ready to conclude on the report. And what I'm going to end with here in the reporting side of things is Jira. So we have an integrated connection with Jira. By clicking on the, I'm not going to show it to you for time purposes again, but by clicking Jira login, you would be connected into Jira. And then as you see on the far right column, the Jira defects IDs would and can appear, and you can also search for them as well, and then you can update those, right? So take this into account. This was also a great benefit for our insurance customer, as it has been for other customers. Having this level of connected granularity allows the QA tester to directly interact at a step level, if that's the way the defect is interconnected or associated, being able to say, this is now passed, or we now have a failure, right? You might have done a regression test, which had passed before, but now we've introduced an error. Unfortunately, that does happen, which is exactly why you do regression testing, and we'd want to be able to account for that just the same. And our insurance customer, again, I mentioned the poor reporting. We talked about challenges and pain points. This was one of those. They did not have this connection with their platform. They'd attempted to manually connect it, but it was not well done. And it was also something they had to manage with a product, as you would expect from most products that provide an overall point solution. You need to get things out of the box, and we provide such integration capabilities out of the box. So with that, I'm now going to jump into the last phase of our demo here, and that is the test planning phase. Okay, so again, when you first start out, in most cases, you would create a test plan. And for us, no surprise, you would start out here as well, but we provide a graphical view into test planning at large. This is powerful for two reasons. First of all, as you start to step into and prepare your test plan, right, you can, in an object-oriented visual way, start to break that out and see the various interconnect points, okay? This also makes it super easy for managing it over time. I can add branches easily. I can also determine what objects, right, screen objects, those you see in this teal color, those screen objects, I can repurpose them. Yes, I can reuse those. And that's powerful as well, because think about the capture process I went through. I went through that. While that didn't take much time, if I can cut or trim any amount of time, I'm more agile, I'm able to accelerate faster. This ultimately becomes compounded acceleration. As I expand coverage, I get to reuse these objects. So you are getting compounded acceleration, and I over time become more agile, or I can more rapidly adopt test cases and guess the impact that has on the agile development process. You got it. It actually helps accelerate that as well. Another powerful capability that we provide in this area is that these test cases can become quite large, right? I'm showing you a simple one, relative to, as I said before, there was a test plan behind this. You're now getting a visual of that. But if this was a much larger test case, you might assign or want to assign various parts of this to various staff members. It could be via skill sets. It might be more or less resource time management. There's a whole allotment of reasons why you would want to assign that. And we provide that too, and I'll give you a quick view into that just the same, okay? So I can quite simply select the main test plan, and I can choose how, what my execution is going to be, or whether I want to execute everything, or if I want to assign it. The tasking here is exactly that. I'm going to assign for execution purposes. So if I was going to say what part of this is going to be executed, parts or all, or if I were to assign it, I can then pick a user. I could also pick a user to actually be part of the assignment process. So very flexible here. Again, choosing the start date, time, who you want the reviewer to be, which is important certainly if I'm still in the test design realm, what I want the end date to be, that of the start, and then if I want to propagate, right? So in the case of execution, do I want just one part to execute, or do I want the entire test suite to execute? So a lot of very powerful features. This experience is very unique to our platform. You're not going to find that with other platforms, and the flexibility that it provides. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump out of the demo really quick. And let me go ahead and advance my slide. A near closing slide for me, a near wrap-up slide. You've seen a lot of what you see on the screen in summary here, but I want to make some important subtle points. And again, tying this back to the purpose and focus of our insurance customer and noting what our other customers have seen and gained of great benefit. The Avo test automation platform, right, provides holistic capabilities as a platform, from capture through to design, through to seamless but very powerful intelligent execution, scheduling, scalability for execution, right, in and across a no-code based design platform. The other bit that's very important here, and I touched on this in the very beginning with challenges and pain points. When you look at things disparately, it's not the intention usually, but was the case with our insurance customer. They started with web, they staffed for that purpose, they went down that technologically speaking. What they lost out on was the holism of even the user experience, which by itself gives you an economy of scale, right? Think about your resources, even if they have a better experience in the application in the mainframe, or what might be a mainframe application or a web or mobile. That's fine and that's great. But being able to bring this into a platform that gives you the holistic as well as agnostic capabilities, right? That underlying technology, but greatly simplified, is powerful unto itself and allows you that economy of scale in and across your whole testing suite, and will provide great benefits to your development team, who is trying to and being expected to run faster, as was the case with our insurance customer. So lastly, I want to extend to all of you, because we're excited as our insurance customers, as you can tell I am, and we've had many other customers take advantage of this. We want to extend to you a 14-day trial. You choose the test case or test scenario that you would like to embark on, and we'll be there for you. And so take advantage of it. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to you, Pradeep. Take it away.
Fantastic. And now there is one question that it was a very interesting presentation there. And what I see there, Chris, is a lot of undertone in terms of how mature the organization was to look at the application testing as an area or a function, correct? So many a times the challenge I see from my customers also is, they don't even have the wherewithal to even think about application testing in a mature fashion. So what I want to do is I want to do a quick poll to understand from the audience here. We also have questions coming in. And let me first ask the audience how mature their application testing process is and how the organization sees it as in the first place. So all of you will see a small poll. Request you to take a few seconds, answer that. It will be open for a minute. Here is the poll now. We have 25 more seconds. It'll be great to see your questions as well as, answering the poll. Okay. Perfect. Okay. I need to close the poll. Okay. So as I can see in the results, we have 46% of the audience, who have polled, showing that they are in the early stage of test automation. So the question that I want to ask you, Chris, is before I go to the audience questions, the question I have for you is it necessary for an organization to have some form of a documented process or some form of a plan around test automation before they jump in to use Avo Automation, or is it not really necessary? They could just call you guys and they could get everything mapped out. How does that work?
Well, it can work either way. We're always eager and very willing to work with our customers. Generally speaking, most customers, unless they're doing this fresh from the get-go, maybe they're a startup, right? As an example, and we've experienced some of that as well over the years. But in most cases, they have some degree of maturity in and around their test planning already, right? It could be manual, as you saw in some of the results, and so they have something constructed, right? We work with them from that standpoint, again, looking for orders of efficiency, understanding what their application environment is, how extensive it is, the degree of coverage they would like to attain, and we have discussions with them. Obviously, you can't and shouldn't go and try to boil the ocean all at one time. You have a focus and you have prioritization relative to that focus, but one should always keep your eye on where do I want to end up, and that's that total coverage perspective. And so when we speak with our customers, we're asking them to take that into account, and as we work with them, we're also looking in an expansionary way on their behalf, looking to take that into account and establish that total coverage need that they have, so that they get the best fit and best opportunity for success.
Perfect. So the question from one of the audience members is, how does object capturing work when the properties change? One of the challenges in automation is ever-changing object properties. Does it use XPath, object ID, or
Right. Yeah. So great question. I mean, obviously they're all good questions, but this one is a great question, is that it comes up often because it happens a lot, right? So our computer vision basically has two aspects to it. The first part, which is AI based, and Lisa mentioned this in the very beginning, we have algorithms in place, right? Intelligent algorithms that identify objects in and across their different application types, right? So we can do this in web, we can do this on a mainframe emulation screen, believe it or not, but we can do this. We can do it on an SAP S4 HANA screen, which tends to be a bit of a hybrid, right? Or it represents challenges. The point I want to make is we're able to identify objects as objects that are not location based. What I mean there is we're not setting anchor points based on where that object is on screen, okay? But we also have a fallback, as most do, and this is critical when using an application through Citrix, right? Which represents its own challenges, because that, after all, Citrix presents things in a pixelated manner, right? Now, we don't see it as pixelated, but it's made up of thousands of pixels. It's an image. So we also have an image recognition capability, something we call Iris as a nickname. But with Iris, as part of our computer vision, where you're not able to successfully identify an object because it might have something in terms of a unique property to it, you can use Iris to capture it as an image, and we can also operate not only flagging that, tracking that as an object, and use that as a variable as well. So we've got our customers back here covered between the intelligent algorithmic computer vision that we have, as well as our image-based recognition that we have for on-screen. And again, critical in both cases it's very difficult. You can't apply an algorithmic approach with Citrix. So you have to have both, and we have both, and neither are location based.
Got it. Got it. The next question that I have for you is, how does your tool handle dynamic IDs such as lists?
Well, it handles it. It's a more extensive, or it adds complexity to a test case. What I would suggest, just in the interest of time, that please, for whoever asked that question, reach out to us, and we'd love to give you a demo on how to do that. What I will say is we certainly can handle that. And again, it's the association of username and or if it were a password, and utilizing other API capabilities that we have. Again, not needing to code. I want to point that out. So let's strike up that conversation through a demo at a later point in time.
Perfect. Perfect. And the last one, I think, again, a lot of technical questions coming in, which I really enjoy, reading and understanding.
Sure.
If there are UI changes to the application, for example, UI changes due to an infrastructure upgrade, would the test scripts need to be redesigned, or can they run with the previously defined
Well,
one?
so, unfortunately, I'm going to give the it depends answer, right? It's possible that they might need to be. Okay, so I'm going to fall back to the aspect of if it does, and this is not common, but because again, we're not doing location based. So depending upon the extent of the redesign, again, if it was complete refresh, right, and you can imagine what that might look like from a UI standpoint. If it's an extensive complete refresh, then the answer would be yes. In most cases, no. But even if the answer is yes, okay, so I'll take the worst case scenario here. I want to draw everybody back to the capture process and the ability to easily make an update to an existing test case where you're literally appending, right, at that point in time, what would be that object, or it could be objects, right, as part of or in front of that test design. So you'd merely go back to the screen mode, you would do your recapture, and then you'd reassociate it quickly as I showed in test design. So it's even if you take the worst case scenario, it's at a fraction of the time or accelerated compared to if you were taking a coded approach.
Okay, great, great. Now, I think we are 5 minutes into the time, so anyways, so I think it was a fantastic session, Chris. And I really thank you, Wither and Lisa, for taking time out and sharing with us the approach that you've taken towards test automation. It's really interesting to see that it is a completely no-code approach, which is one thing I really like. The second thing is that we are able to visualize the whole testing flow, which is also quite helpful for a lot of testers. And it's a very flexible and an intelligent way of, making our automation smarter, and that's what I would say, so I think really it's been very helpful. But last question, before we close the session. So if someone wants to use your tool, and you said there's a 14-day trial, so how does that work? They simply write an email to you, or, how do they approach you?
Send us an email, give us a call. Either way works. I know Ash, our head of sales, is excited and even anxious. Would love to speak with you, and so would the team. So please just reach out to us, and we'll get that scheduled. Whether it be a demo, as alluding back to one of the questions, happy to do that. Or if someone would like to jump in, we'll set up a trial period. We are cloud ready. And so we would likely, for expedited purposes, drive a trial off our cloud instance. So we're happy to do that either way, and appreciate that.
Really, really helpful. That so I will tell we will be sharing the presentation, which you made today with the entire audience, and also some of the members who could not make it to the presentation today, though they had registered for it. And certainly we will ask them to reach out to you at the ID that you have specified. So
excellent.
Really thank you for attending, for everyone, and for taking the time out. And thank you, Avo, for having come over to us and presented the idea of smart, intelligent test automation. Do watch out for this space, and we will certainly be coming up with more in the series on automation as we go forward. Appreciate everyone's time. Thank you, and have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.